The air is already warm, though the sun has yet to climb over the flat horizon. A breath of wind moves through the dusty courtyard, stirring the edge of a clay jar, rattling a reed mat, and carrying with it the faint scent of burned cedar and the sweet heavy perfume of frankincense. You are lying on your side, eyes half closed, feeling the fine grit of sand between your cheek and the woven fibres beneath you. Somewhere far above, a bird cries, not a bright morning song, but a slow, rasping call that seems older than the sky. In the distance, the ziggurat rises, a mountain made by human hands, its layered steps catching the first dull glint of dawn. The bricks are warm even in shadow, their edges chipped and worn smooth by centuries of sun, rain, and the silent tread of bare feet. From here, it looks eternal. From here you cannot see the cracks, only the way the light bleeds along the stone like water. You breathe in, and the scent of the temple is everywhere. Oil and ash, damp earth after night's coolness, and something older, stranger, the smell of offerings long burned, prayers long spoken, and the weight of eyes that never blink. The day will come for you soon, but for now you lie there, suspended between sleep and waking, listening to the murmurs of the city beyond the temple gates, and the steady heartbeat of the gods above you. Tonight you will live in their shadow. Tonight you will not leave, and so your day in the Babylonian Ziggurat begins. You wake to the slow trickle of water somewhere behind the walls, a sound that should be gentle but only reminds you how little of it you'll taste today. The mat beneath you scratches against your skin, and when you shift, it whispers with the dry hiss of old reeds. The smell is a mixture of your own sweat, the faint rot of damp straw, and the clinging incense smoke that has settled into every thread of cloth in the temple. Your sleeping place is not a room, it is a shadow in the corner of the lowest terrace, where the wind slips in through a narrow gap in the brickwork and deposits a nightly offering of dust. There is no door, only a hanging strip of coarse linen to mark the space as yours, though in truth it belongs to anyone who happens to need it more. You've woken before to the weight of another body pressed against your back, breathing slow and damp in the darkness. Sometimes it's a fellow servant, sometimes it's a stray dog that's found warmth in the folds of your robe. The reed mat itself is frayed at the edges, curling upward like the cracked pages of a forgotten tablet. Beneath it the floor is hard-packed clay, warm to the touch in summer, ice-cold in the rare Babylonian winter nights. Your pillow is a folded cloth sack filled with chaff. It smells faintly of grain, though any grain worth eating has long since been crushed into flour and sent to the priest's table. The sounds of the temple creep into your waking slowly, the shuffle of feet above as the senior attendants prepare the first offerings, the low hum of a prayer being mumbled under someone's breath, the dull clink of metal on stone. You can hear the pigeons too nesting along the upper terraces, cooing softly as if they know nothing of the gods they live beside. When the wind shifts, it brings the scent of the sacred hearth, wood smoke and the charred tang of yesterday's offerings. It seeps into your lungs, fills your chest, and clings to your hair. There's no escaping it. It's the same smoke that stains the ceiling black above the altar, the same that will follow you until you are nothing but smoke yourself. The light reaches you slowly. First a pale ribbon across the floor, tracing the uneven surface of the mat. Then a slow spread of gold up the wall, revealing the cracks between the bricks where tiny lizards emerge to warm themselves. You feel the heat growing with it, not the gentle warmth of morning, but the heavy pressing kind that turns the air into something you must drink before you can breathe. You rise without thinking about it, because if you don't, someone will come to find you. The priests expect the temple's shadows to be emptied of their sleepers before the day properly begins. There is no softness in the mornings here, no lingering. The gods are awake, and so must you be. You fold the mat and tuck it away against the wall, as you've done every day you can remember. Your fingers are already dusty, the nails rimmed with grit. You shake the cloth sack and breathe in the faint sweetness of chaff, one last time before setting it aside. Some mornings you allow yourself the smallest luxury, a moment to sit cross-legged and stare up at the towering steps of the ziggurat. From this low angle, the structure seems endless, each level a world of its own. You know you'll climb them today, carrying something too heavy in the heat that will feel too thick to swallow. But for now, you let your eyes follow the line of the bricks, step after step, until they vanish into the sky. The corner where you sleep is already growing hotter. You can feel the day creeping in, heavy as the bricks themselves. Somewhere in the distance, the deep note of the temple drum begins, slow and steady, calling the living to their work. You stand, brush the dust from your robe, and step out into the courtyard. And just like that, your resting place is gone, folded away, forgotten until night comes again, and you return to it like the shadow you've always been. Rest now if you can. The steps are waiting. The robe is the first thing you feel before you even open your eyes some mornings. Its rough wool scratching at your neck, the smell of it already clinging to you like another skin. It is heavy in a way that makes you notice the air, how it presses the fabric into your shoulders when you move. The wool was once the pale beige of a lamb's coat, but the temple has its own colours now, the faint brown of dust ground in over years, the ghostly stripes of incense ash, the darker stains whose origins you have stopped wondering about. It is not entirely yours. Nothing here is. It belongs to the temple, same as you, passed down from one servant to another until it wears thin in strange places. The elbow on one sleeve, the seam along the shoulder, the hem at the back where it drags across the steps. If you lift the edge to your face, you can smell not just yourself but the ghost of everyone who wore it before you, oil from their skin, smoke from their work, sweat from their fear. Around your waist, a length of twisted wool serves as a belt. It's rougher than the robe, its fibres stiff and uneven, like rope that has been soaked and dried too many times. It cinches the robe close, holding it in place when you carry baskets up the temple's endless stairs. If you tie it too tightly, it digs into your stomach, leaving red marks that last until nightfall. Too loosely, and the robe will slip open in the wind, letting the grit and heat in against your skin. Underneath, you wear a coarse linen tunic, sleeveless, thin enough to let the breeze through but thick enough to rub your skin raw if you walk too far. The linen scratches more when you sweat, which you will within minutes of stepping outside. At your feet, there are sandals, 2 layers of leather bound together with thin strips that bite at your toes. The soles are worn almost smooth from the stairs, and the leather smells faintly of the oil used to keep it from cracking in the heat. You've patched them twice yourself, sitting cross-legged in the courtyard with a bone needle while the older attendants watched without comment. On certain days, festival days, sacrifice days, you are given a sash. It is dyed with what the priests call the blood of the gods, though you know it is just the deep red of madder root. The dye fades quickly in the sun, but in the moment, under the gaze of the idol, it looks rich, almost alive. The sash is soft, finer than anything else you will touch all week. You feel almost wrong wearing it, as though the cloth itself knows you're not meant for such things. Every piece of clothing is heavier here because it is more than fabric. It is a sign. The robe says you belong to the temple. The belt says you are bound to it. The sandals say you will carry its weight until they fall apart. None of it is chosen, and yet you take care of it because in a place like this, even what you don't own can be taken from you. When the morning air still has a breath of coolness, you feel the robe as a shield, but by midday it will be an oven. The wool will hold the heat close to your body, the linen will cling damp against your back, and the belt will feel like a snake tightening with every step you climb. Sweat will darken the robe under your arms, soak the sash until it bleeds faint colour onto the tunic beneath. You will not notice it fully until you stop moving, when the wet cloth chills you in the shade and leaves you shivering despite the sun. In the quiet moments you sometimes wonder what it would be like to walk bare-skinned through the temple, to feel the bricks under your feet and the wind against your body with nothing between you. You imagine it would be a freedom so sharp it might hurt. But here, bare skin is not freedom, it is shame, punishment, and the fastest way to invite the gods' displeasure. So you wear the robe, you tie the belt, you step into the sandals, feeling the leather mould once more to your feet, and you carry the temple on your back in the shape of cloth. By the time you step into the courtyard, the smell of the robe is already with you. It will follow you up the steps, into the shrine, through the day, and back into your corner when the night falls again. You will hang it on a peg near your mat, watch the dust settle on it as you sleep, and know that in the morning it will be waiting the first weight of the day, the one you cannot put down. Rest a moment before you climb. The gods are patient, but the heat will not be. The drumbeat reaches you before the light does, a slow, measured thud that seems to roll through the bricks themselves. You feel it in your ribs as much as you hear it. One strike, then another, then the long pause that leaves space for the air to grow heavy again. It is the temple's first breath of the day, and it tells you gently, firmly, that it is time to rise, whether or not you have slept. The courtyard is still more shadow than sun when you step out. The ziggurat looms above, its highest tiers still cloaked in the last of night's coolness. The stairways are empty except for a pair of older attendants, their silhouettes framed in the arch of the lower gate. They carry baskets of barley balanced on their hips, their sandals whispering against the stone as they move. The scent hits you next. Even before you reach the altar, you smell the mingling of cedar resin and crushed juniper, the faint sweetness of dates mashed into paste, the sharp edge of goat's milk left to warm in the morning air. Offerings do not smell clean. They smell alive, thick and complex, a mixture of life and decay that sits heavy in your lungs. Your task begins at the storeroom. Inside, the air is cool and still, smelling of grain and old clay. Jars line the walls, barley, sesame oil, honey sealed with wax. You take what is given, a shallow clay dish of flour, a small bowl of figs, a narrow jug of beer that sloshes against its sides when you lift it. The jug leaves a wet ring on your palm, the liquid inside already sour with the warmth of the room. Outside, the light has grown. The first layer of the ziggurat steps glows gold, the edges of the bricks sharp in the low sun. You begin to climb, the dish balanced carefully in your left hand, the jug tucked against your side. Each step is worn in the centre from generations of feet, smoothed to a shallow curve that catches the light. You take them slowly. There is no need to rush, and every reason not to spill. At the first platform you pause to let another attendant pass, a boy no older than 12 carrying a bundle of reeds for the incense fire. His arms tremble under the weight, but his eyes stay lowered. No one speaks in the morning ascent. The silence is part of the offering. The shrine smells stronger here. Not the smoke, not yet, but the perfume of the idol's chamber, rich with myrrh and the faint metallic tang of gold warmed by the sun. The idol is not for you to see. It waits behind heavy linen curtains, its form known only to the highest priests, though you have glimpsed its shadow once or twice when the fabric stirred. A face, perhaps, or just the suggestion of one caught between the folds. You set the flour down first, pouring it into a shallow bronze tray. The figs follow, laid in a circle around the edge as you've been taught. The beer you pour slowly into a carved stone bowl, its rim catching the light so that for a moment it looks like molten amber. Some of the liquid splashes onto your fingers, and you lick it away before anyone notices. It is bitter, flat, but it is beer nonetheless. Then the incense. You take a pinch from the basket and drop it onto the coals, watching as the resin melts into a thin trail of smoke. It rises in a slow, twisting line curling toward the idol's hidden face. You bow your head and breathe it in, letting the heat sting your eyes until tears blur the stone at your feet. The priests arrive then, tall, robed in dyed wool that catches the light like flame. They say nothing to you as they pass, their sandals soft against the floor. One lifts the curtain just enough to slip inside, the rest follow, and you are left kneeling beside the offering. You can hear their voices from within, low and rhythmic, like water flowing over stone. You do not understand all the words. Some are too old, too sacred, meant only for the gods themselves. But you know the cadence, the way it begins slow, builds to a chant, then fades again into stillness. You know the pause where the idol is touched, anointed with oil, its face wiped clean as though it could see the dust. You know the sound of a clay jar being set down, perhaps filled with fresh water, perhaps with wine. When they emerge, the incense smoke is thicker, curling around their robes, clinging to your own. One of them nods to you, and that is all the dismissal you will receive. You gather the empty bowls, the half-finished beer, the sticky fig stems, and carry them back down the steps. Your hands are slick with juice and oil, your robe faintly damp where the jug pressed against it. By the time you reach the courtyard, the sun is fully awake. Its heat lies on your shoulders like another garment, and the air hums with the sound of flies. Somewhere beyond the temple gates, the city is waking too, but here, inside these walls, the day has already begun. The gods have been fed. Now it is your turn to work. Rest a moment if you can. The next climb will be heavier. You learn the temple's order before you learn the gods' prayers. It is not written anywhere, not on clay, not on papyrus, but it is in the air, in the way people stand, in the weight of each silence. You feel it in the tilt of a head, in the way someone steps aside, in how a voice lowers when certain robes pass by. You could wander the city outside and not know who was king by sight alone, but here in the shadow of the ziggurat, you can sense a person's place the moment you see their sandals. At the top there is the high priest. Though you will rarely see him, he moves like the gods themselves, hidden behind layers of curtain, guarded by corridors of incense. His voice is carried to you only through others. His commands pass down like echoes until they are almost whispers. He eats in the uppermost chamber, where the air is cooler, and the walls are painted with images you'll never touch. The sound of his sandals is softer than yours. You imagine they are lined with cloth instead of raw leather. Below him are the senior priests, draped in robes so fine you can almost see the light pass through them. Their belts are embroidered with patterns you're not allowed to weave, the threads dyed with colours that take weeks to make. They smell faintly of perfumed oil, of wine, of hands that do not carry baskets. They speak the prayers that open the day and close the night, and their voices are trained to fill the great stairway like the low note of a horn. When they pass you, they do not look down. Then come the junior priests, still above you, but their robes are heavier. Their sandals worn, they serve as messengers, carrying the high priest's words to the others. They lead processions, arrange offerings, and stand in the sun for hours while the senior priests remain in shade. They will glance at you sometimes if you work quickly. They remember the years they stood where you are now. After them are the scribes. They are not priests, but in some ways they are feared even more. They have the power to make you exist or vanish on clay tablets. A single scratch of their stylus can declare a debt repaid or a debt owed, a sin forgiven or remembered. They sit cross-legged in shaded rooms, their fingers stained with reed ink, their eyes trained on the shifting lines of cuneiform. They watch you like they are already writing about you. You keep your head down when they do. And then the long stretch down the steps. There are you and the others, servants, attendants, workers whose names are not written unless something has gone wrong. You sweep the floors, carry the water, tend the fires, wash the stone where blood has dried. You climb and descend until your legs hum like the temple drum, until your robe sticks to you like another layer of skin. There is order even among you. The older servants get the lighter loads, the shaded posts, the tasks that keep them near the storerooms where cool air lingers. The younger ones, the ones with legs that still run, are sent up and down the ziggurat with baskets of grain, jugs of beer, jars of oil. You are somewhere in the middle, not young enough to run without feeling it, not old enough to be spared. Below even you are the borrowed hands, the city folk pressed into service for a day or two, their debts paid in sweat. They do not know the temple's rhythms, so they stumble where the bricks are worn, speak too loudly near the shrine, or drop something they shouldn't. You are the one told to fix their mistakes. The hierarchy is not just about tasks. It is in the way people stand on the steps. The high priest never climbs without someone ahead of him to sweep the path. The senior priests walk in pairs, their shadows long in the morning light. The junior priests follow in their wake. Scribes keep to the sides, watching but never carrying. You and your kind take the centre when climbing, heads bent against the heat, sandals slapping the stone in unison. Sometimes, when you are sent to the higher tiers, you pause at the platform just below the shrine. You can feel the air change there, cooler, cleaner, like the gods themselves breathe it before anyone else. You look up and see the final steps, guarded by two senior priests, whose eyes move over you without stopping. That is as far as you will go. The last tier is for those who speak directly to the gods, or for the offerings themselves. You are neither, and yet the hierarchy has its strange comfort. You know where you stand. You know whose orders you must obey, whose gaze you must avoid, whose shadow you must not step into. In a world as wide as the city, as unpredictable as the gods' moods, there is safety in knowing your place, even if that place is low, even if it is heavy. The sun has cleared the horizon now, spilling gold across the upper terraces. Somewhere above, the high priest is speaking words you will never hear. Somewhere below, the storeroom waits for you to carry its contents up another flight. Rest for a breath on the step you're standing on. It will be gone soon enough. The summons comes without words. A junior priest appears in the courtyard, his face unreadable, his hand lifting in the smallest gesture. You set down the broom without being told, because you know what it means. This is the day you will step inside the shrine, not to pray, not to stare, but to clean. The climb is slower this time, not because your legs are tired though they are, but because the weight of the task changes how you move. The stairs seem steeper, the air thinner. At each tier you pass bowls of burning incense. the smoke drifting upward in long, pale ribbons, curling around your robe. It clings to your skin, sweet and sharp, until it settles deep in your throat. When you reach the upper platform, the guards stand aside. You bow your head, not out of reverence, though perhaps it is that too, but because you do not want to see their eyes. Beyond them is the curtain, heavy with embroidered scenes you have never been close enough to study. Gold thread catches the light, twisting into the shape of a lion's jaw, the spread of wings, the curve of a god's hand. The cloth smells faintly of cedar and myrrh, as though the shrine's breath seeps through. The junior priest parts the curtain just enough for you to slip inside. The light changes instantly, dim, filtered through oil lamps whose flames shiver in the still air. The walls are close, painted with figures whose eyes follow you, their colours muted by centuries of smoke. At the centre, on a pedestal higher than your shoulders, the god waits. You had imagined the idol as cold, distant, untouchable. Instead, it feels near. The gold is warm from the trapped heat of the chamber, and the air around it seems heavier, as if the figure breathes without moving. Its face is carved into something between man and beast, the lips set in an expression you cannot read. The eyes, inlaid with black stone, hold the lamplight in a way that makes them seem wet. The tools are laid out for you on a low table. A bowl of perfumed water, a square of soft cloth, a small pot of oil, a brush made from fine reeds. You dip the cloth into the water first, wringing it until the droplets fall slow and heavy onto the floor. The scent rises immediately, sweet, resinous, threaded with something darker. You begin at the feet. The gold is cool at first, but warms quickly under your touch. Your fingers move in slow circles, tracing the lines of the toes, the curve of the ankles. Every mark you wipe away feels like it has been there for centuries. Dust from the courtyard, ash from the incense, pollen carried on the wind, all of it gathers here at the god's feet. The legs are harder to reach, and you must stand on a small stool, balancing carefully as you wipe the folds of the robe carved into the metal. You feel the fine grooves catch the cloth, as though the gold itself resists being made new. When the water runs dark, you dip the cloth again, watch the ripples spread across the bowl, smell the perfume grow stronger. Then the oil. You take only a little on the cloth, smoothing it over the surface until the gold shines as though lit from within. The lamplight dances on it, flickering with each shift of your hand. You are careful not to touch the face yet. That comes last. The brush is for the finer details, the curls of the beard, the ridges along the crown, the small inlaid stones that dot the robe. You work slowly, brushing away grains of dust no larger than the seeds in a pomegranate. The sound is faint, a soft hiss against the gold. Finally, the face. You climb higher, the stool wobbling slightly under your weight. The eyes meet yours as you lift the cloth, and for a moment you hesitate. You are not supposed to look too long, not supposed to think of the idol as watching, but the longer you stand there, the more you feel as though it is. You wipe the forehead, the cheeks, the curve of the lips. You work the oil into the surface until it gleams, until you can see the faintest blur of your own reflection in the gold. Your face looks strange there, stretched, distorted, swallowed by the shine. When it is done, you step back, the tools resting on the table once more. The god stands as it always has, unmoving, unchanged, and yet for the briefest moment you think it looks alive. The junior priest returns without a word, and you step aside as he draws the curtain closed behind you. Outside, the sun strikes your eyes, the heat sudden after the shrine's cool dimness. The scent of the oil still lingers on your hands, and you rub them together as if to keep it there. You will not touch the god again for many days. But tonight, when you lie down in your corner, you will smell the perfume in your robe, and remember the warmth of the gold under your fingers. Rest now. The image of the god will not fade even when your eyes close. There is no polite way to begin this part of the day. The temple smells of incense, yes, but also of people, and people are never without their less sacred functions. Somewhere in the hierarchy of divine service, you rank low enough that this particular duty is yours. The latrine is not tucked neatly indoors. It sits at the edge of the lower terrace, away from the main stairway, but still well within the temple's shadow. The smell reaches you before you see it, not a sharp stench, but a warm, constant presence, like an invisible wall in the air. By the time you approach, your nostrils have already decided to go numb. It is not a single room but a row of shallow clay pits, each lined with worn bricks. Over these, long flat stones are set with holes, evenly spaced as if the builders took some pride in their symmetry. They are cool to the touch in the early morning, though you know they will bake under the sun until they are almost too hot to sit on by midday. The system is simple. Waste drops into the pit. A handful of ash or sand is thrown after it, and every few days the lowest ranked servants dig it out. That, unfortunately, is also your work on certain mornings. Not today, but often enough that you no longer flinch at the memory. It is done with flat wooden scoops, the kind usually used for grain, though you never mistake the smell. The scooped matter is taken to a pile beyond the temple walls, where it dries into something that can be used for fuel in the poorest parts of the city. The gods waste nothing, apparently. There is no curtain, no partition, no pretense of privacy. The attendants come when they must. Robes gathered in one hand, eyes fixed on the far wall. A low hum of voices sometimes drifts through soft greetings, muttered complaints about the heat, the scrape of sandals on brick. You never look directly at anyone here. Eye contact in the latrine feels like some minor but irreversible sin. The flies are constant. They rise in a dark ripple when you wave your hand, only to return the moment you stop. Their buzzing becomes a background hum, like the drone of bees in summer. You learn to ignore them, just as you learn to ignore the faint splash below, the way the air shifts when someone else sits down nearby. You keep a small jar of oil-soaked reeds near your place, lighting one and letting the smoke curl lazily in the air. It doesn't truly banish the smell, but it softens it, mixing it with the faint scent of charred wood and dried herbs. Sometimes you imagine the gods themselves watching you here, amused at how far from glory their servants must sometimes work. The worst moments are on feast days, when the temple is full, the line grows long, the pits fill faster, and the air grows thicker. You find yourself working twice as quickly just to keep pace, scooping and scattering ash until your arms ache. The smell clings to your robe afterward, no matter how much incense you pass through on your way back to your duties. Still, there is a strange kind of peace here. Early in the morning, before the heat comes, you can sit for a moment, the stone cool under you, and watch the sunlight creep across the courtyard. You can listen to the city waking in the distance, the calls of traders, the bark of dogs, and pretend you are not sitting where you are. When you stand, your knees ache from the angle, your hands dusty with ash. You step away from the pits, sandals crunching on scattered grit, and the air clears with every pace you take. The temple rises before you again, all gold and shadow, as if the latrine were some forgotten side path in its great design. You dust off your robe, breathe in, and step back into the flow of the day, as if you had not just been in the one place the gods surely never visit. Rest a moment in the breeze before you climb. Even this air for now is clean. By the time the midday drum sounds, the sun has become a weight pressing down from every direction. The stone steps of the ziggurat radiate heat back into the air, so that each breath feels thick and dry, as if you're swallowing warm dust. Your robe sticks to your back, damp where the wool has soaked up sweat, and even the breeze, if you can call it that, is the temperature of baked clay. Lunch is not a feast, not a ceremony, and certainly not a comfort. It is simply the moment when you are allowed to stop. You make your way down to the narrow strip of shade along the north wall of the courtyard, where the sun's reach has not yet found you. The wall here smells faintly of old rain, a smell you only notice because it's absent from so much of your life. The food comes from a broad wicker basket carried by one of the older attendants, his face lined with years of heat. He hands it out without looking at you, a piece of barley bread, hard enough at the edges to scrape your gums, and a handful of dried dates that cling to your fingers with a thin film of sugar. The bread crumbles when you break it, scattering dust-coloured crumbs into your lap. You brush them away quickly. The courtyard's pigeons have learned to swoop down for such things, and their wings startle when they come too close. Beside you, someone pours beer from a clay jug into a shallow cup. It's not the crisp, golden drink the high priests might taste. This is cloudy, flat and warm from the morning sun. You drink anyway, letting the faint bitterness settle on your tongue, the liquid washing away just enough dust from your throat to keep you talking, if you had anything to say. But you don't. No one does. Not now. The shade is thin here, a shifting edge between light and dark. Every few minutes, you lean back farther against the wall to stay out of the sun's reach. The wall's bricks are cool against your spine at first, then slowly begin to heat, like the breath of something too large to see. You can hear the faint hum of flies circling the dates, the occasional clink of a jug being set down. Above, the temple's upper tiers shimmer in the heat, their edges wavy as though they were painted in water. Somewhere up there, the high priest might be dining in the cool chamber of the shrine, the air perfumed and the plates heavy with figs, lamb and wine. The thought passes quickly, not because it's too painful, but because hunger dulls the imagination. You focus on your bread, tearing it into pieces small enough to chew without straining your jaw. When you finish, the sticky sweetness of the dates lingers on your fingers. You wipe them against the inside of your robe, where the fabric is already stiff with old stains. You take one last sip of beer, tilting the cup to catch every drop, then set it on the ground beside you. The shadow has shifted again. Thinner now. For a moment, you let yourself close your eyes. The drum is silent, the air is still, and the murmur of the courtyard fades into the soft rush of your own breathing. It's the closest you will come to rest all day. Not sleep, not even stillness, but a pause, as fragile as the skin of a bubble. Then a voice calls, sharp enough to cut the heat. The cups are gathered, the baskets taken away, and the thin strip of shade begins to shrink to nothing. You rise, brushing dust from your robe, the taste of barley still on your tongue. The sun is waiting, and so is the work. Rest in the memory of that shadow. The light will take it soon enough. The steps do not look like much from a distance, just rows of sunlit stone rising in neat steady lines toward the blue-white sky. But distance is a lie, the ziggurat tells you. Up close, the stairs are wide enough that each feels like its own platform, high enough that you must lift your legs like you're stepping onto a wall. They are not a path, they are a slow punishment. By midday, the heat has soaked into them so deeply that the air above shimmers. When your sandal touches the first tier, it is already warm. By the third, it is hot enough to seep through the leather, making the skin of your soles prickle. By the seventh, you begin to feel as though you're walking over a kiln. You carry a basket of barley this time, the weight pulling at your shoulders, the rough edge digging into your palms where you grip the rim. The rope handle is frayed, stiff with salt from someone else's sweat. Every few steps you adjust your hold, but the relief is fleeting. The heat from the stone rises into your legs, the heat from the basket presses down, and the heat from the sky closes in on all sides. The walls of the ziggurat rise beside you in great unbroken stretches of brick. Up close you can see where the edges have worn down into soft curves, where cracks have grown like thin black veins. Each brick is baked the colour of dust, some with faint handprints from the people who shaped them long before you were born. You think of those hands now, of the sweat that must have fallen into the clay before it hardened, of how the sun they worked under was the same sun that beats on you now. You pace yourself. The climb cannot be rushed. Too fast and your breath will turn sharp in your chest. Your vision will pulse with each heartbeat. Too slow and the basket will feel heavier, as if the gods themselves have set their palms upon it to press you back down. The trick is to move without thinking, one step, then the next, the rhythm a kind of prayer you do not speak aloud. Occasionally a shadow crosses the steps ahead, a priest descending in his fine robe, the folds stirring just enough to let out the scent of the shrine. Oil, gold, smoke. You step aside, lowering your eyes until he has passed. Sometimes he gives you a small nod, sometimes nothing at all. Both mean the same thing. Keep climbing. There is no breeze here, only the breathless air that clings to the ziggurat's face. Your robe holds the heat against your body like a sealed jar. The wool itches under your arms, the linen underneath is damp, and each movement makes the cloth cling more tightly to your skin. A bead of sweat slips down your temple, slow and deliberate, until it meets the line of your jaw. Another slides along your spine, making you shiver in spite of the heat. You reach the next platform and pause, setting the basket down on the warm stone. The relief is instant but dangerous. If you let yourself rest too long, the stiffness will set in, and the next step will feel heavier than the last. You shift the basket to your other hip, take a slow breath, and begin again. From this height, the city below looks small, the roofs like scattered tiles, the river a pale line in the distance. You can hear faint shouts from the marketplace, the bray of a donkey, the clatter of pottery, but they seem to belong to another world. one you cannot reach from here. The last stretch feels longest. The sun presses directly on your head now, burning through the cloth of your hood. The basket's weight has settled into your shoulders like stone. Your breathing is louder than your footsteps, each exhale a puff of warm air that tastes faintly of dust. When you finally reach the appointed terrace, you set the basket down in the shade of a wall, your fingers aching as they uncurl from the rope handle. The barley will be taken inside for the evening offerings. Not by you, not now. Your work was the climb, the delivery, the heat endured without complaint. You step back, your shadow long and thin against the wall, and for a moment you close your eyes. The light is still there behind your eyelids, burning gold. You open them again, only when you hear the call to descend. The way down is easier, but no cooler. The heat follows you step by step, as though it has claimed you for itself. Rest when your feet touch the courtyard. The next ascent will come soon enough. The sound reaches you first, not the slow, steady drum of the daily rituals, but a sharper rhythm, layered with voices that rise and fall like the tide. It comes from beyond the temple gates, from the city gathering in the open space before the ziggurat. Even from the courtyard you can hear the uneven swell of the crowd, the way it breaks into sudden shouts before sinking into a low, restless hum. Sacrifice days draw everyone. Traders smelling of spice and sweat, farmers still dusted with soil, children balanced on their fathers' shoulders to catch a glimpse of the gods' favour or their wrath. The air feels different on these days. It is thicker, heavier, not only with heat but with expectation, the kind that seeps into your own breathing before you realise it. The smell of incense is stronger, burning in great clay bowls along the temple steps, but it cannot hide the other scent rising from the square. Animals, sheep mostly, though sometimes goats or doves, their scent sharp and unmistakable. They bleat and shift, their hooves tapping restlessly against the stones. They have no sense of the crowd's anticipation, only of the sun, the tight ropes, the unfamiliar press of bodies. Your task is to help prepare the path. You sweep the steps from the courtyard to the first platform, brushing away dust, stray leaves, the odd discarded date pit. The broom's bristles scrape against the stone, and already your back aches, but you work quickly. The priests will descend soon, and the stairs must look as though the gods themselves walk upon them. When the high priest emerges from the shrine, the crowd erupts into sound. His robe is heavier than usual. The wool dyed so deep a red it could be mistaken for blood even before the ceremony begins. Gold thread glints at the edges, catching the sunlight in sharp, almost blinding flashes. Behind him, junior priests carry bowls, knives with curved blades, jars of water sealed with wax. The steps seem to glow in their wake. You keep to the side, just close enough to catch the first scent of what is to come. The animals are led forward, their eyes wide, their breath fast. The priests speak words too old for you to understand, their voices steady over the restless shifting of hooves. The crowd quiets, not entirely, but enough for the sound of the first cut to be heard. It is quick, always quick. The knife's curve is designed for it, the priest's hand practiced. There is a sharp bleat, a sudden rush of movement, then stillness. The blood falls fast into the waiting bowls, dark and steaming in the heat. The smell hits you in a wave, metallic, thick, clinging to the inside of your nose. It mixes with the incense, the sweat of the crowd, the hot breath of the animals still waiting their turn. The offering is carried up the steps toward the shrine. Some days you follow with jars of water to wash the stone where the blood has dripped. The water runs red for a moment before the heat dries it to a faint, rust-coloured stain. The priests say the gods see the colour long after it fades to your eyes. You wonder if that's true, or if it's simply something meant to keep you believing. The crowd murmurs prayers as each animal is taken, their voices low and urgent. Some ask for rain, some for a child, some for a justice. A few, you suspect, ask for vengeance. All of it rises toward the shrine in one indistinct tide of hope and fear. When the last offering is done, the remains are carried away, either to be burned in the sacred fire or taken to the kitchens for the priests. You are given the task of clearing the path once more. The steps are warm under your feet, the stone darkened in places where the sun has yet to dry it fully. The smell lingers, no matter how many times you rinse it away. By the time the high priest disappears back into the shrine, the crowd has begun to scatter. The shouts fade to the softer sounds of the city, bargaining, laughter, the rattle of cartwheels over stone. but the temple keeps its silence as though nothing had happened at all. You return to your corner, your robe carrying the faint scent of smoke and blood. It will cling to you until you sleep, and maybe after. Rest now if you can. The gods are satisfied for today. It slips through the temple like smoke, not thick enough to choke you, but impossible to avoid. You hear it in the way someone clears their throat before speaking, in the pause between two innocuous words, in the low, almost musical hum of voices when the priests are far enough away not to hear. Gossip here is not loud. It doesn't need to be. The walls carry sound, and the walls, like the gods, have a way of holding on to it. You learn early that nothing in the ziggurat is truly private. Your corner in the courtyard, the steps you sweep, the storeroom where you fetch grain, all of them are thin-skinned places ready to leak your words to anyone who happens to be passing. So people do not speak plainly. Instead, they weave their meanings between the strands of everyday talk. The grain's been heavy this season, might mean a shipment came late. The air feels different today, could mean the high priest is in a foul mood. And the gods are watching closely, might mean that someone, somewhere, has made a mistake. The rumours travel in layers. The outer layer is harmless. Who is favoured by the junior priests? Who has been assigned to the cooler storerooms? Who was caught napping behind the incense ovens? These are safe to repeat, small amusements traded like pebbles between the hands of bored servants. Beneath that are the sharper whispers. Who drank too much beer from the offering jars? Who hid extra figs in their robe? Who lingered too long in the shadow of the shrine curtain? These are the stories you pass carefully, making sure your voice doesn't carry, your eyes fixed on the floor. They are never about you, until they are. And then there is the deepest layer, the one spoken only in the half-dark, when you are certain the only ears belong to those you trust. This is where the dangerous things live. Which priest is losing the king's favour, whose debts are climbing too high? Who has been seen slipping through the temple gates after moonrise? These are not for amusement, they are for survival. Sometimes knowing is the only shield you have. Today, the talk curls around one subject, a jar of oil gone missing from the storeroom. It's not just any oil, but the perfumed kind reserved for anointing the idol's face. No one says the word stolen, not directly, but it sits in the space between every glance. You hear one servant mutter that the jar was never delivered at all. Another swears they saw it in the hands of a junior priest. Though they cannot say which, the story changes with each telling, growing sharper at the edges, like a blade being honed. Even the pigeons seem to listen, bobbing their heads from the temple ledges as the words pass from one mouth to another. You keep your own shut, not because you have anything to hide, but because here, silence is often mistaken for wisdom. The gossip does not end when the sun begins to fall. It drifts upward with the heat, slipping into the priest's quarters, maybe even into the shrine itself. You wonder if the gods hear it too, and whether they find it tiresome or entertaining. Perhaps it is no different to them than the prayers, another kind of offering shaped from the restless need to be heard. When you finally step away to fetch water from the courtyard well, the air feels lighter, not because the talk has stopped, but because you've left it centre. You draw the bucket up, the rope wet and rough under your hands, and drink deeply before wiping your mouth on your sleeve. Tomorrow, the story will change. It always does, and you will hear it again, whether you want to or not. Rest your voice for now. The walls will do enough talking without you. The sun has fallen behind the city walls, but its heat still clings to the bricks of the ziggurat, as if the day refuses to let go. The courtyard glows in the dim light of oil lamps, their flames bending in the soft evening wind. You can smell the lamps before you see them, a faint tang of burning sesame oil, mixing with the sharper sweetness of the last incense of the day. The call for night prayers is not shouted. It moves through the temple like the tide, a gradual pull that gathers everyone toward the steps. You feel it in your feet before you realize you are walking. Basket put aside, hands still smelling faintly of the barley you carried earlier. The priests are already assembled by the time you reach the first platform, their robes casting long shadows over the stone. You take your place at the edge of the crowd. The arrangement is always the same. The high priest nearest the shrine, the senior priests flanking him, junior priests behind, and the servants filling the space between the temple walls and the first rise of the steps. The air is dense here, the smoke hanging low, as though the prayers have weight and must push their way upward. The chant begins with a single voice, deep, steady, a note that feels more like a vibration in your chest than a sound in your ears. Another voice joins, and another, until the air itself seems to hum. The words are old, their syllables carved into the shape of the gods' names. You do not know all of them, not precisely, but you know how to let your mouth form them without thought. Your voice blends with the others, just another thread in the thick weave of sound. The rhythm is slow, hypnotic. You sway slightly without meaning to, your knees softening, your breath falling in time with the chant. You taste the smoke in your throat, warm and bitter, and your eyes water until the golden light of the lamps blurs into a soft liquid glow. The sound swells, fills the space between the bricks, wraps around you like a wool blanket. Some prayers are for the day's thanks, for the grain delivered, for the sun's return, for the survival of the city walls. Others are for protection against the things you cannot see. Sickness, storms, the gods' displeasure. A few are for the dead, their names slipping like smooth stones into the flow of the chant. Your legs ache, but you do not shift your weight. Movement would break the thread of the moment, and here the smallest disruption feels as though it would echo forever. You keep your eyes lowered, fixed on the faint shimmer of oil across the stone floor. When the chant finally slows, the last notes linger in the air like incense that refuses to rise. The high priest speaks a final word, low and almost gentle, and the crowd answers with a murmur that feels like exhaling. The silence that follows is as deliberate as the prayer itself, the kind of silence that draws your attention to the sound of your own heartbeat. The priests turn and ascend into the shrine, their robes stirring the cooling air. The servants begin to scatter back to their corners, their voices hushed, their steps slow. You linger a moment longer, breathing in the fading smoke, feeling its weight settle into your robe, your hair, your skin. By the time you return to your sleeping place, the stars have begun to edge their way into the sky. The hum of the prayers still lingers in your bones, like a warmth that isn't entirely from the day's heat. You lie down and the sound seems to follow you, even as your eyes close. Rest now. The gods are listening, but for once they are quiet. Sleep in the ziggurat is never just sleep. It is a slow sinking into a darkness that feels heavier than the night air, one that hums faintly in your ears like the echo of the temple drums. You lie down in your corner on the reed mat, still smelling of smoke and sweat, and stare at the bricks above your head until the patterns blur into shapes. The air is warm, close, tasting faintly of old incense and the breath of those sleeping nearby. Somewhere in the courtyard a dog shifts and sighs. Somewhere else someone mutters in their dreams, their voice soft and strange as if speaking to someone who is not there. When you finally drift under, the world that takes you is not the one you left. You stand in the upper shrine, though you know you have never been allowed there at night. The lamps are unlit, but the gold of the idol still glows faintly, as though lit from within. Its eyes are fixed on you, not the soft, unfocused look of carved stone, but something sharper, almost wet. The air is heavy with the scent of cedar and blood, though you see neither wood nor wound. You move forward, your sandals soundless on the floor, and place your hands on the idol's feet. They are warm, too warm, and they seem to pulse faintly under your fingers like the flesh of something alive. You try to speak, though you do not know what you mean to say, but your voice catches in your throat. The gold feels softer than it should, as though it might give way if you pressed harder. Then the idol exhales. It is not a sound you hear, but one you feel in your bones. A low, slow release of air that smells of the river at night, of damp earth, of something ancient and buried. Your knees weaken under the weight of it, and you drop your gaze, unable to meet the eyes that now seem far too human. You feel as though you should bow, but your body is frozen, your breath shallow. The scene shifts without warning, as dreams always do. You are outside now, standing on the highest tier of the ziggurat. The city lies below you in perfect stillness. No fires burn in the houses, no torches flicker in the streets, no voices drift upward. The river is a flat ribbon of silver, unmoving, as if frozen in place. The air is cold, though the night is clear, and you can see your breath as you exhale. A shadow moves at the edge of your vision, tall, thin, too long in the limbs to be human. You do not turn to face it. You cannot. Your feet are rooted to the stone. You feel the shadow pass behind you, so close you can sense the air shifting around it. It stops beside you, and though it has no face you can see, you know it is looking out over the city, the same as you. In the dream, you want to speak to it, to ask what it is, what it wants, but when you open your mouth, only the sound of the temple drums comes out. Slow, deep, like the beating of something enormous. The shadow leans closer, so close you feel its cold breath on your ear, and whispers a word you do not know. The sound of it slides into you like a knife between ribs, sharp but without pain, and the world goes black. You wake suddenly, heart pounding, the air in your corner heavy and warm. It takes you a moment to remember where you are, to realize the gold and the shadow and the frozen city were not real, but the word the shadow spoke still hums at the edges of your mind, as if it might be waiting for you to repeat it. You try to recall it, but the more you reach for it, the further it slips away, until all you are left with is the faint taste of river water in your mouth. In the ziggurat, you do not speak such dreams aloud, not because you are forbidden, though you might be, if anyone thought to ask, but because dreams here belong to the gods. To speak them is to risk drawing their attention in ways you may not want. You have heard stories of servants who whispered their dreams into the wrong ears and found themselves summoned to the shrine the next morning, kneeling for hours before the idol, waiting for some sign they could not name. So you keep it to yourself. When another servant asks why you are so quiet at the morning meal, you shrug and say you didn't sleep well. When the junior priest notices your hands trembling as you carry the oil for the lamps, you blame the heat, and when you pass the idol later that day, its gold gleaming in the filtered light, you do not look at its face. Still, the dream clings to you. You find yourself glancing at the highest tier of the ziggurat when you climb, half expecting to see the frozen city, the unmoving river. You listen for the shadow's breath in the quiet corners of the courtyard. You hear the drums differently now, not just as a call to prayer, but as the echo of something older, something that might have been speaking to you. At night, you lie down with the hope of forgetting, but you know how the temple works. Its walls are thick with prayers, its air heavy with smoke, its bricks steeped in the lives of those who have served before you. The ziggurat does not let go easily, not in waking and not in sleep, and somewhere in that wait the dream waits, patient, unblinking, ready to return when the gods decide you are ready to see it again. Until then, you keep your eyes lowered, your voice steady, and your hands busy, and you do not speak, not of shadows, not of gold that breathes, not of the city that froze beneath a silent sky. Rest now if you can, but remember, the gods hear more than prayers. The temple is vast, yes, towering above the city like a stairway carved into the sky, but it is also a cage. You may walk its steps, climb its tiers, carry its offerings from the storeroom to the shrine and back again, but the boundaries of your life are laid out in brick and shadow. The world beyond is something you hear about in fragments, half-believed tales passed between servants during the rare quiet moments, stories so large they feel like dreams you've been forbidden to have. You will never see the ocean. The word alone is strange in your mouth, shaped differently from river, heavier somehow. You've heard of it from traders who pass through the city gates, their voices thick with salt air and sun. They speak of water that stretches so far the sky and the earth seemed to meet, of waves taller than ziggurat walls, of air that tastes like metal and wind that never tires. But here, water is the slow bend of the river, its surface slick with the reflection of the sky. You can imagine no horizon but the one built of mud, brick and reed. You will never see mountains. You've heard they are cold even in summer, their peaks white with snow that never melts. Snow, the word, feels soft, but in the temple it is only dust, ash, sand. The tallest thing you know is the ziggurat itself, and even it was made by human hands, brick by brick under the same sun that warms your back now. The idea of something larger, untouched, rising on its own from the earth, that is beyond imagining. You will never see the king's palace, though it is only a short walk from here. Its walls are high, its gates guarded, and the paths that lead to it are not for you. You've seen the royal messengers in the courtyard before, their sandals unscuffed, their robes embroidered in colours richer than the temple's own. They move like the city itself bends out of their way. You carry barley and oil past them without raising your head. The palace might as well be a day's journey away, and for you it is farther. You will never see the far deserts where the air burns during the day and freezes at night, where the stars are so thick in the sky they look like spilled grain. You hear of them from the herdsmen who bring goats for sacrifice. Their eyes narrow against memories of wind and sand. They speak of nights so silent you can hear your own heartbeat in your ears, and mornings where the sun rises like fire over an endless plain. You cannot picture a place where nothing rises from the horizon, not even a single mud brick wall. You will never see the inside of a merchant's ship with its rows of jars tied down against the rocking of the waves, the smell of foreign spices heavy in the air. The jars you carry are sealed, their contents known only to the priests. You have smelled the cinnamon once, sharp and sweet, and imagined the far-off land it came from, but the ship that brought it, the way it leaned into the wind, the spray of water against its hull, is a vision that belongs to someone else's life. You will never see the northern forests. You have heard of trees taller than towers, their leaves so thick they hide the sun, their trunks wide enough that 10 men could not encircle them. The wood you touch is already cut, already shaped into bowls, into tools, into the handles of brooms. You know nothing of the sound leaves make when the wind moves through them, or the way the air might smell beneath their shade. You will never see the festivals in the city streets after dark. By the time the torches are lit, you are in your corner of the courtyard, the weight of the day pressing into your limbs. You hear the faint echoes of music, the thump of drums different from the temples, the laughter of people who are free to wander. You wonder what it would feel like to walk with no purpose, to turn down a street simply because you wanted to see where it ended. You will never see the temples of other gods. You have heard they are carved into the sides of cliffs, or built over springs where the water runs so clear you can see the stones at the bottom. You are told they are lesser, their gods weaker, but you wonder if their servants feel the same ache in their legs, the same grit in their teeth, the same heaviness in their dreams. And you will never see the place where the river meets the sea. You imagine it sometimes when you cannot sleep, the river widening until its banks disappear, the current losing itself in something vast and unknown. You picture standing there, watching the water that has touched your city drift out into a horizon with no end. You imagine stepping into it, letting it carry you where the temple walls cannot follow. But here, in the shadow of the ziggurat, your world is measured in steps and tiers, in the distance from the courtyard to the shrine, from your mat to the storeroom, from one brick wall to the next. The farthest you will travel is the height of the temple itself, and even from its top the horizon is only a line you cannot cross. And yet these absences become their own kind of map. Each thing you will never see marks the limits of your life, the edges of your world. They are boundaries you carry in your mind, even if your feet never test them. The gods may have built the walls, or the priests, or the hands of those long dead. It does not matter. You walk within them, day after day, year after year, your eyes fixed on the bricks, your ears tuned to the drum. You think sometimes of the people who came before you, whose lives were also drawn inside these same lines. You wonder if they imagined oceans, mountains, forests. You wonder if the gods showed them such things in dreams, the way they sometimes show you shadows and frozen cities. And you wonder if, like you, they kept those visions to themselves, guarding them like treasures that would vanish if exposed to the air. When the night comes and you lie on your mat, you close your eyes and try to picture the things you will never see. The images come in flashes, a wave breaking against a rocky shore, snow falling on a mountain top, the wind moving through tall grass. They fade as quickly as they form, leaving only the steady pulse of the temple around you. You turn onto your side, facing the wall. Somewhere beyond it lies the world you will never touch. Somewhere beyond it, the river still runs, the desert still stretches, the sea still breathes. But here, within the bricks, there is only the slow breathing of the others asleep beside you, the smell of the reed mat under your cheek, and the faint unbroken hum of the gods. Rest now. The horizon is far, but the steps are near. The ziggurat may look eternal from the city streets, but inside its walls death moves as quietly as the wind through the gaps in the bricks. It is not a distant threat, not something you imagine only in moments of fear. It is here, every day, in ways so ordinary you stop noticing until it chooses to notice you. Fever is the most common. It comes without warning, sliding into your body on the back of the heat or the cool damp of morning fog. One day you are carrying a basket of barley up the steps, your legs sure beneath you. The next you are lying on your mat, the world swaying every time you blink. The fever makes your skin burn and your teeth ache, but still leaves you shivering under your robe. The priests say such illness is a test from the gods, but they do not bring the cool cloths or fetch the water. That work falls to the other servants, who tend you with the caution of those who have seen the fever take more than it leaves. Then there is the heat itself. The sun over Babylon is not content to warm, it crushes. By the third climb of the day, your breath comes short, your lips crack, your eyes blur at the edges. You know to stop just before your knees give way, but not everyone does. You have seen someone collapse mid-step, their basket tumbling down the stairs, the sound of barley scattering like hail. They did not get up again until they were carried to the shade, their skin pale beneath the grime. Some do not get up at all. The work is another danger. The baskets are heavy, the steps unforgiving, the rope handles frayed enough to snap without warning. You have seen it happen, a jug of oil slipping from someone's grip, smashing against the stone, the amber liquid spilling into a slick that sends the next man down hard on his back. Sometimes it's just bruises and curses. Sometimes it's the sound of something breaking inside a body, the kind of injury that keeps you lying down for weeks, if you have that long to lie. Animals too have their moments. The goats brought for sacrifice may look harmless, but their horns are sharp, their legs quick. You've seen one twist out of a handler's grasp, bolt through the courtyard, and send 2 attendants sprawling. Even the pigeons that nest on the upper tiers are not without malice. Their droppings slick the steps, and a misplaced foot can mean a tumble you will not walk away from. And then there are the punishments. The temple runs on obedience, and disobedience, even the kind born of mistake, has a cost. A careless word, a misplaced offering, a robe left untied during a ceremony. Any of these can earn you a flogging in the courtyard, the strikes as rhythmic as the prayers but far louder in the body. Some transgressions demand fines, but fines are taken in work or food, and here that can mean the difference between walking steady and stumbling before the day is over. Superstition can kill as surely as illness or the sun. If you are thought to have offended the gods by speaking the wrong words in the shrine, by dropping an offering, by looking too long at the idol, you may be sent to spend the night on the upper steps alone with nothing but a thin robe between you and the wind. The cold that settles there is not like the coolness of night in the courtyard. It bites, gnaws, sinks deep into your bones. Some come back down shivering, hollow-eyed, their voices hoarse, others do not. Water is never as plentiful as you wish. The well in the courtyard is deep, and the bucket heavy when drawn full, but the priests drink first. If the day has been long and the offerings many, you may find yourself tipping an empty jug toward your mouth, hoping for a last drop that will not come. Thirst dulls the mind, and a dulled mind forgets to watch its step. The stairs are not forgiving, and yet the most dangerous thing of all might be the walls themselves. The bricks are ancient, their mortar worn, their edges smoothed by centuries of feet and hands. A piece can give way without warning, sending dust and stone down in a sudden rush. You have heard of men buried in such collapses, the air knocked from their lungs before they could call for help. The temple stands for the gods, yes, but it is still made by human hands, and those hands cannot stop time from eating at the edges. There are slower deaths too. The cough that comes from breathing too much incense smoke, thick and sticky in the lungs, the ache in your joints from years of climbing, bending, lifting, carrying, the way your back stiffens so much you can no longer straighten fully by the end of the day. These do not take you in a moment, but wear you down until there is nothing left to take. You know all of this, and yet you work. You climb, you carry, you kneel before the idol, you sweep the courtyard, you light the lamps. You do it because it is what you have always done, and because the temple does not open its gates to those who simply decide to walk away. Sometimes, late at night, you wonder if the gods watch all of this, the fevers, the falls, the floggings, and if so, whether they see it as devotion or simply inevitability. You wonder if they care which it is, but then you close your eyes, and the smell of the reed mat under your cheek, the slow breath of those sleeping nearby, the soft pulse of the temple drums in the distance, all of it tells you that for now you are still alive. And here, that is enough. Rest while you can. Tomorrow has teeth, and it will bite without warning. You carry baskets and jars, brooms and braziers, scoops and sloshing pails, but those are not the heaviest things you lift in the temple. The true burden is invisible and everywhere, pressed into the mortar between bricks, coiled inside the incense smoke, tucked beneath the folds of every priestly robe, the expectation that you move as if seen, not merely seen by human eyes, by eyes that never blink, that live in gold and shadow, that measure you even when you are alone. You feel it before dawn when you rise from the reed mat and your first thought is not hunger or thirst but posture. Keep your back straight when you step into the courtyard. Keep your hands still when you hold the offering bowl. No tremor to insult the god. Keep your gaze lowered, because eyes that wander are eyes that implicate. The temple has a memory. Every misstep lingers in it like a stain the oil never quite removes. You move the way a page turns in a book already written. It is not only obedience that weighs on you, it is the choreography of reverence, the practiced slowness, the measured pauses, the way you must become the pace of prayer itself. When you walk past the shrine curtain, you shorten your stride without thinking. When you place figs in a circle, you leave the exact spaces you were taught, as if gods judge distance like scribes judge lines. When you set down a jar, your fingers hesitate a heartbeat longer than necessary, a small, silent apology to the air for letting go. Little acts of humility, repeated until your body performs them without asking your mind. The priests tell you the gods are heavy because they are real, the way a storm is heavy or a river before a flood. But their weight for you is quieter. It settles like dust on your tongue. It lodges behind your sternum and makes your breaths shallower than they need to be. It is in the pause you keep after your name is called, to erase any hint of haste from your voice. It is in the careful blankness of your face when someone else is scolded within earshot, so your sympathy does not look like defiance. You feel it most strongly on days when nothing goes wrong, when the steps glisten with heat, the offerings arrive on time, the chants line up like bricks and still the unease remains. The temple is satisfied, the gods presumably are fed, yet your shoulders do not unclench. The weight is not punishment for error, it is the cost of being a body inside a story that demands devotion from beginning to end. You tell yourself it is protection, a pressure that holds you upright, that keeps your feet from slipping on polished tiers. You imagine the weight as a palm between your shoulder blades, guiding you toward the next task, the next basin, the next sweep of the broom. Think of it that way long enough and you almost believe it, that what pins you here also keeps you from falling. But then there are the quieter proofs. The way laughter dies halfway up the steps as if thin air starves it. The way conversations turn short and sideways in the shadow of the shrine. The way a junior priest's gaze can press your heart against your ribs without touching you. The gods do not shout. They do not need to. Every brick in the ziggurat has learned to say hush. You learn to bargain with the heaviness. A mouthful of warm beer buys you 10 heartbeats of lightness. The brief cool of the storeroom doorway buys you enough breath to climb again. At night, lying on your mat with the drum a distant pulse, you press your palm to your sternum and wait for the pressure to lift. It never does. Some nights it softens. That is enough. There are days you resent it. Not loudly, not with words. Resentment here is a private posture, a slower turn of the head, a grip a fraction tighter on the broom handle, a blink that lingers when smoke stings your eyes. You imagine what it would be to shrug the temple off like a robe after rain, to walk bare-shouldered into the market, to ask the river for a story not approved by a priest. The imagining itself is dangerous. You tuck it away the moment it warms you. The wait has a sound. You notice it first in the way silence thickens just before a ceremony begins, how your ears pop as if the air has grown heavier. Later you hear it in the brushes you use on the idol's crown, a dry whisper that is not the reeds, not the gold, but something between them. It is in the foam of oil when you wipe the god's lips, the soft sticky hiss of Amen. Even the pigeons answer to it, beating their wings only in the moments ritual allows. You wonder what the priests feel. Do their robes distribute the force, or does their nearness to the shrine press them flatter? The high priest moves like someone balanced inside pressure, each gesture exact, every pause accounted for. If he is crushed by it, he has learned to look graceful as he's compressed. You envy and pity him by turns, then chastise yourself for both. Some mornings, as you climb with an empty basket to fetch what the day requires, the sun lays its hand on your head, and the bricks radiate up through your feet until you are a line between two flames. In that furnace, the god's weight becomes indistinguishable from heat. Your breath shortens to fit the space they've left you. Your thoughts reduce to the angle of the next step and the certainty that your legs remember what to do. The burden in those moments is almost a relief. You do not have to decide who you are, only how not to spill. The weight is also memory. It holds the shapes of those who have carried it before you. An imprint of backs bowed, ankles swollen, hands blistered and healed and blistered again. You fit yourself into the groove they carved through repetition, and it takes you the way a river takes a reed boat, exactly where the current has gone 1,000 times. You think of your name. How rarely anyone says it aloud here. How the temple erodes names into functions until only the work remains. Perhaps that is part of the heaviness, the subtraction of everything that does not serve, and when grief comes, because it does, regularly, without spectacle, the weight grows cunning. It tells you to hold the jar steadier than usual, to make the offering circle perfect, to leave your sorrow at the storeroom door like a tool not needed for this task. You obey, because the temple teaches you to tuck your losses under the ritual's edge where they cannot trip anyone else. If you must weep, do it when you rinse ash from the latrine pits, so the water pretends it asked for your salt. There are, strangely, mercies inside the pressure. The chant that levels your breath, the way a single thread of shade at a tear's edge feels like an absolution. The small cool of the brass bowl as you set it exactly where it should go. In those fractions of ease, you are not carrying the gods. They are letting you borrow their stillness. You stand inside that loan for as long as they allow, then hand it back and go on. Once, on a rare evening when wind slid through the upper corridors and made the curtains breathe, you lingered after the lamps were lit. You stood beside the doorway where shadow met gold, and you tried to ask not aloud, not in words, whether the gods notice the bodies that bear their names up and down the steps all day. What returned to you was neither yes nor no, but a sensation like a hand loosening its grip just enough that you realised there had been fingers there at all. You laughed quietly at your own surprise. Then you bowed to whom you could not have said, and carried the empty bowls down. If the weight ever leaves you entirely, you suspect you would fall forward, as sailors do when they reach land after months at sea. You have learned to lean into it, to let it set your balance. Freedom, should it come, would stagger you. This is not a comforting thought, but it is honest. The temple builds its endurance into your bones the way wind shapes dunes, invisibly, relentlessly, until your body is a map of its demands. Night does not remove the pressure, it redistributes it. The heat drains from the bricks and gathers in your joints. The hush settles heavier in the courtyard. Your mat accepts your shape like a mould you'll have to climb back into tomorrow. You lie there and feel the god's mass move from above you to around you, a circumference of duty that hums at the edge of sleep. The drum is softer, a heart farther away, but it is still there. It always is. You think of the word service and how it has two faces, the face of devotion that looks upward and the face of labour that looks down at the task in your hands. The weight connects them. It reminds you that the bowl you scrub is a mouth you feed, that the ash you scatter is a body you tend, that the step you sweep is a road for something larger than feet. Believe that deeply enough and the heaviness becomes meaning. Doubt it and it becomes only mass. Tonight you choose meaning because you need to sleep. You close your eyes and imagine laying the weight beside you on the mat, the way you set down a basket when your fingers are raw. It doesn't work, not really, but the imagining makes space enough for your breath to lengthen. Your shoulders slacken one careful notch. Your jaw remembers how not to grip. The gods will be where you left them in the morning. For now, you shape your breathing to the gentlest story you know, that you have done enough today, that the steps will wait, that nothing demands to be carried while you dream. Rest now. Let the heaviness hold the walls instead of you. Just for a little while. The day has emptied itself. The drums are silent now, the incense bowls cold. The priests vanished into their upper chambers. Even the pigeons have tucked themselves into the cracks along the walls, their coos replaced by a deep, still hush. The courtyard lies in shadow, lit only by the faint orange glow of the oil lamp still burning along the lower tiers. You are not in your corner tonight. You are on the steps. It is not punishment. Not exactly, though it might feel like one before the night is over. The junior priest who gave the order had no edge in his voice. "Stay on the second tier tonight," he said, as if asking you to keep watch over something, or perhaps over nothing at all. No explanation, no reason given. Just the task. And you accepted it, because that is what you do when you are told something in the temple. You accept. The stone beneath you still remembers the heat of the day. When you sit, it presses into the bones of your hips, seeping slowly upward until it meets the cool air of the night. That contrast is sharper here than anywhere else. Warmth from below, chill from above. You pull your robe tighter around you, feeling the wool scratch against your skin. The air smells different at this hour, still faintly of incense, but also of the dust rising from the city as the wind turns inward from the desert. Somewhere far below, a dog barks once, then again before the sound is carried away. From this height, the city feels both close enough to touch and far enough to be unreal. The streets are not dark. Lamps flicker in doorways, torches burn at the gates, but they are hushed. The shouts of the market have faded to murmurs, the clatter of carts to the occasional distant rattle. You can see the river, a black ribbon glinting in the moonlight, winding away into somewhere you will never go. You imagine following it, walking beside it until the temple is just another shadow behind you. The thought is brief. You know it will never happen. Above you the ziggurat rises tier after tier, each level darker than the last. The shrine itself is hidden, its heavy curtain drawn, but you can feel it. The gods may not look down, but they are not absent. Their weight is here, pressed into the very air. You shift on the stone, trying to find a position where your back does not ache, your knees not pulled too tightly against your chest. It is no use. The steps were built for ascent and descent, not for rest. You think of all the feet that have passed over this spot, priests in their fine robes, servants like you with baskets on their hips, animals led upward for offering. You wonder if any of them paused as you do now, halfway between earth and the shrine, between the noise of the city and the silence of the gods. Perhaps some did, but only for breath, not for thought. And yet here you are, with a whole night of thought ahead of you. No work to distract your hands, no chance to shape your breathing. The moon climbs higher, and the shadows shift. You watch the light slide along the bricks, tracing their uneven surfaces, catching on the places where the edges have worn smooth. Your eyes grow heavy, but you cannot quite let yourself sleep. The steps are hard, the night air restless. Every sound makes you lift your head, the flutter of a bird's wing, the creak of rope somewhere in the courtyard, the sigh of the wind curling between the tiers. Time in the temple is usually measured by task. The sweep of the broom, the climb to the next platform, the pouring of the oil, the lighting of the lamps. Tonight it stretches in ways you cannot mark. There is nothing to do but wait for the sky to change. You try to pray, but the words feel thin in your mouth. You let them go and simply breathe. The gods will hear what they wish, whether you speak or not. After some uncountable while, the air begins to cool in earnest. The warmth in the stone drains away, leaving it damp and cold beneath you. Your robe is not enough to stop the chill creeping in through the cloth, winding into your spine. You pull your knees tighter to your chest, rest your chin there, and watch your breath turn pale in the moonlight. Your fingers are stiff now, the knuckles aching when you flex them. You think of your mat in the courtyard, of the reed's familiar unevenness, of the way your corner catches the first hint of sunlight in the morning. You think of the pigeons stirring overhead, the quiet scuff of sandals on the flagstones. You think of warmth, and you realize that perhaps this is the point of keeping you here tonight. Not punishment, but a reminder. The temple's comfort is measured, never freely given. A night without it sharpens your sense of how little is yours, and how much you rely on what the gods choose to allow. The stars are clearer here than they are in the courtyard. You can see the faint dust of the Milky Way stretching across the sky, a pale echo of the sand and stone beneath you. You wonder how many servants before you have looked up at this same sky, seeing the same scattered lights, and wondered if the gods lived among them instead of in golden brick. You wonder if any dared to believe it. Somewhere deep within the ziggurat, the drum beats once, not for ceremony, not for dawn, but like a heartbeat checking itself. The sound is low, almost more felt than heard, and it fades as quickly as it came. You sit very still, as if movement might make you miss it should it come again. It doesn't. When the horizon finally begins to pale, it is not dramatic. There is no sudden flare of light, no grand unveiling. The darkness simply thins, the stars dim, the first smudge of gold appearing where the river bends. You uncurl your legs, flex your stiff fingers, and rise slowly, careful not to stumble. The stone is colder than it was when you sat, and your feet are numb against it. You look once toward the shrine above, its walls still in shadow. You bow your head, not out of habit, but because it feels wrong to leave without doing so. Then you begin the slow walk down, the city's waking sounds drifting up to meet you, a door opening, a voice calling to a neighbour, the creak of a cartwheel. When you step into the courtyard again, the oil lamps have burned themselves out. The reed mat in your corner waits for you, as if you had only stepped away for a moment. You lower yourself onto it, the scratch of the fibres a strange comfort after the cold stone. You will not sleep now, the day is already stirring, but you close your eyes anyway, just to feel the difference. In rest, even if the sun is rising, the steps will always be there. The temple exhales when the day ends, though you've never seen it happen. The change is not in the bricks or the steps, not in the shrine curtain or the lamps, but in the air itself, a loosening as though the gods, having had their fill of incense, prayer and blood, finally let their gaze fall elsewhere. It is the only time the ziggurat feels less like a cage, and more like a vessel emptied for the night. You lie on your mat in the courtyard, your body heavy with the residue of the day. The reed beneath you is warm where you press against it, cool where the night air creeps in along its edges. Above, the first stars appear between the soft shreds of cloud drifting over the city. The smell of smoke still clings to you, not fresh, bright smoke, but the flat, lingering scent that has seeped into your robe and skin so deeply it will follow you into your dreams. The sounds are faint now. Somewhere near the gates, a guard shifts his weight and the butt of his spear taps the stone. In the far corner, someone coughs once, twice, then falls silent. The last pigeons mutter in their sleep, their wings rustling softly. The city beyond is quieter still, its noise dulled by the temple's high walls, as if the night itself were padded in wool. Your body aches in familiar ways. The rope burn across your palm from the barley basket, the dull throb in your calves from the stairs, the small knot between your shoulders from carrying too much on one side. These pains are almost comforting, proof that you moved, lifted, served, survived. Tomorrow they will be replaced by new ones, and tomorrow night they too will settle into the slow breathing of your body. The sky deepens. The air cools enough that you pull your robe tighter around you, tucking your knees in until you are a bundle in the corner. You think of the shrine above, its idol wrapped again in the silence of the curtain. You wonder if the gods sleep, or if they simply grow still, watching the city until the next offering is carried up to them. You wonder if they remember the faces of the ones who carry those offerings, or if you pass before them like shadows that dissolve in the heat. Your breath slows. The day's tasks loosen their hold on your thoughts. The steps are no longer before you. The basket's no longer in your hands. The smell of the latrine, the incense, the oil, all of it fades into a soft blur. You are neither in the courtyard, nor in the city, nor in the world beyond the walls. You are in the narrow space between one breath and the next, where the weight of the gods does not reach. The reed mat shifts slightly under you as someone walks past, but you do not open your eyes. You are already slipping downward, the edges of the world dissolving. The distant river becomes a sound in your ears, then a feeling in your bones, then nothing at all. The temple remains, vast and silent, but it is far away now, as if it belongs to someone else's memory. In this drifting place there are no stairs to climb, no ropes to lift, no chance to shape your mouth around. The sun is not rising, the drum is not calling, the gods are not watching. There is only the rhythm of your own breath, and the steady dark that opens wider the longer you stay in it. No one remembers your name, but that's all right. There are no wolves at the door, no cold in your bones. You've survived another day. Sleep now.